Hello humans. Today I want to talk about this guy right here, which I've been actually looking at for quite a while. This is the Kizer Brat, which is an integral G10 knife from Kizer. So I do know quite a bit about this guy before I even hop into it. I don't want to destroy too much of the packaging. Cardboard box, burn it, recycle it. Plastic tray. One thing I will say for Kizer is the way that they do their boxes is they have like the same size box for a large series of different size knives, and then they have a plastic tray inside that sort of sizes for the knife. In this particular instance with the folding knife, it doesn't, oh, that's cool. It doesn't really seem to be worth it just because it's not being held. But my last couple Kizers have been fixed blades, and for the fixed blade series at least, they have the actual fixed blade in a tray like this, but in a shaped piece, which makes a lot more sense. A little bit of plastic, unfortunate, but nothing you can really do about that. Inside we have this, it's like a flacked cardboard. That's actually very unpleasant to touch. We have our paper wax plastic crap that could be half the size. Nothing super interesting on there. A bunch of pretty pictures on the back, but I mean, you could turn this into like literally this. You have that little information on there. If you just made it double-sided, you could put it on whatever. We have our microfiber cloth. Kizer's always good about giving us some microfiber cloth. And then we have our sticker. Kizer likes giving out stickers. This one here's got the drop bear with, I can't actually figure out what that knife right there is, but it's got the blue drop bear and his little superhero uniform. So that's going to go over there with my stack of stickers. And then we have a couple of screws. I think those are going to be 2 replacement pocket clip screws and potentially a replacement pivot screw. And here we have our knife in its dog poo bag. A little more plastic than I would have liked, but definitely not the end of the world. So, yeah, it looks like we have 2 replacement screws for the pocket clip, one-sided pocket clip. And then 2 replacement screws for this sort of pivot lock assembly. So you can take that out. Man. So the number one big trick of this knife is it is in fact an integral G10 knife. You don't see these very often anymore, largely because for the amount of effort that you're going to go through to make an integral, you kind of need, it's worth doing it in a premium material because you have to have an extremely large amount of precision in order to make a integral knife work, right? With a traditional knife that has 2 different pieces that are held together by screws, if the holes on one side of the scale don't quite match up to the other side of the scale, this can be you can fit it and start tightening them down as tight as they'll go, and it'll be a little bit wonky, but it will still go together. And there are times when you can actually make up for small manufacturing errors, like a 1/10 of an inch out, or not a 1/10 of an inch, 1/10 of a centimeter out, or 100th of a centimeter out, where with the integral, you don't really get that opportunity because if one side doesn't line up to the other side, you are hooped. Your machining tolerances are significantly tighter when there's lots of complex shapes and pieces that all need to be part of the same single piece, right? Which is why usually you see it on premium knives, especially titanium premium knives, or I've seen a couple zirconium premium knives, where like you want premium materials because you have to put all that effort into it anyways. It is worth doing the premium materials in order to justify the higher price point that you have to pay anyway for the increased tooling cost. And believe me when I say the tooling cost is absolutely increased with an object like this. But that's not to say this was always the case. There was a couple of G10 integral knives on the market a while ago, but they definitely phased out quite a while ago. So, oh man, this is kind of, Overall shape, I actually really do like this handle. I actually do really like this handle profile. A little bit of a down section for the inside of your palm or your heel if this is a fighting style you've trained with. I have not. You've got lots of jimping all the way down basically to this swedged section on this nice drop point blade. It almost reminds me a little bit of like a drop point Barlow knife, which it's going to come down to personal preference, but I actually really like the overall lines of this, that nice, very slight arc you get throughout the entire body of it until you get to that more harsh drop. But like, this is all nicely done. The other big advantage that you get is, in general, and this isn't always the case, an integral knife is going to be more comfortable than a similar knife, the same way that a clamshell knife is more comfortable than, I don't want to call it a plate construction, but I feel like it's called a plate construction. Just because there's no hot spots really for your hand to get dug into in the back. There still is in the front, like any other folding knife, but it is heavily reduced. I am noticing this is a very nice pocket clip in my opinion. It's fairly long, but it's nicely, like it's relatively speaking flat. It has a nice bill. I am noticing it, not so much in this grip, but if I roll it over to a little bit more on the front of my fingers, I am noticing it a little bit. But really and truly, it is not bad at all. Action out of the box feels good. It has a little bit, a little bit of a stronger detent than some other flipper knives that I've gotten. That's what it is. These jimps I don't quite think are aggressive enough. I would have liked a little bit more aggressive jimping. More similar to what you have back here, actually. If this exact jimping, like this cut pattern, was the same as back here, it would have provided a lot more grip, made it a little bit easier to flip off of, but, I mean, that push button is actually really nice. In terms of our blade, we have straight section and belly into a nice accessible point, which is very, very much my preferred style of blade. I will occasionally, enjoy a recurve, which I don't quite think this is. But in general, I do prefer straight section, belly section with an accessible point. We do have a sharpening choil, which is quite nice. Flipper tab comes up. Our blade, let me finish my thought and then I'll get into what I just realized. The flipper tab comes up nicely to make it guard without reducing any finger space, which isn't always the case, but I do really appreciate. The other thing that I just noticed is, yeah, we have a very good blade to handle ratio. Look at how close that gets right there at the end. That is quite nice. We're riding on bearings. Man, that's pleasant. And because it's an integral, the only hardware that we have is to kind of hold that locking mechanism in place. So we have our pivot screw, which only has one bolt head, and then we have two bolts to hold in our actual locking mechanism plates, and then we have two bolts to hold in our one position pocket clip. It does kind of suck that it's one position. This is a very right-hand biased knife, but at the same time, I can understand not wanting to do the extra milling and make, like, this is, in my opinion, a very attractive looking knife, and I can understand cutting the pocket in and putting the inserts in, because you do need inserts. You can actually see them back there. You do need inserts to make a knife like this work, or to make a pocket clip on a knife like this work, because the G10 is absolutely not hard enough to put threading into with any type of strength behind it. So there is that. We have a 154 cm blade, which is pretty reasonable. I think this is definitely an upgraded knife without being a premium knife. And I like the tumbling that Kizer does. I think it looks really slick. All right, let's do our out of the box tests. We have a brand new, fresh piece of paper. Okay then. That's a good edge. Wow. I actually just shaved the paper. Okay, that's a really nice final apex. Very well refined. And this nail's longer right now. So the reason I'm doing this is just to feel if there's any like differences in the way that the final edge feels. And this is actually feels really, really nicely done. That's impressively consistent. This is feeling, in terms of like the final edge so far, this is feeling very, very on par to like the lower end of the Wii knives and the upper end of the Civivs, which in my opinion, they do an absolutely phenomenal job, right? Like, out of the box, I would say these two have the same level of final edge, which is pretty impressive in my opinion. So, now we have just our simple puncture test. Got our block of foam. Yeah, that's really not a problem at all. There's enough distal taper going out to this tip that, like, I'm putting very little force into it and it is just absolutely sinking in. A more regular style thrust. Yeah, same deal. And this is just like, I'm not putting an absolute crap ton of force in this, but it is sinking in nicely. It's got a nicely done tip, which is good. Sometimes in drop points especially, you end up seeing sort of the thickness of the spine go out a little bit too far, or the final apex coming in a little bit too tight, and you end up with something that has a lot of resistance in a puncture, which can be a little bit annoying, but this is absolutely not experiencing that. And then let's do our rubber test cut. Okay. Let me just do straight down. Okay, I'm not feeling any shouldering. It's got to be a full height flat grind. Yeah, I'm not feeling any shouldering at all with that, which is quite nice indeed. And the edge is biting into it nicely. And let me just check to make sure that we do in fact have. This is what I have for a straight edge right now. It's a cassette. Deal with it. Yeah, that is absolutely a full height flat grind. So, initial impressions, I am quite liking this thing out of the box. The pocket clip is slick. The action is really nice. And just being a G10 integral is kind of neat and not something you see every day, which I think is pretty exciting. So, like everything else, I'm going to give this a little bit of time in my pocket. I'm going to play with it. And I'm excited to let you guys know what I think about it in a little bit. And we are back. So I've been carrying this guy on and off for a couple of weeks now. And oh my god. Yes. Yes. This is this is comfortably the best sub $250 knife that I own right now. Or my favorite sub $250 knife that I own right now. And a lot of the reason why is the acoustics of it. I am absolutely in love with this sound here. It has like this little metallic ring with a little plastic click and then closing. This is one of the few knives in my collection that I can genuinely pick out of a lineup sound-based alone. And it probably has my favorite acoustics just for fidgeting. The sounds it makes just make me very, very happy, which is pretty cool. In terms of its actual party trick, which is being an integral, the only real reason why that ever came up for me is because it's quite comfortable to hold it like this. I'm not ending up with any of those lines in the back of my hands if I'm twisting or cutting into something, holding it that way, and it was quite a bit more comfortable. Maintenance-wise, I mean, there's less parts. There's less stuff that gets disassembled overall, but you have to put it together more precisely. So I found it not as easy necessarily to maintain to pull apart, but it wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. One position pocket clip, which isn't great. It is very it's a button lock. They are not difficult to manipulate with your left hand if you're right-handed. I guess by the same token, they're probably not difficult to manipulate with your right hand if you're left-handed, but you're going to want it on the more comfortable side, especially if you're working under something. And because this is flipper only, that flipper needs to be very, very nice feeling. And this is, in terms of pure flipper knives, this is probably the best one that I have. It's top 3 at the very least, for sure. This thing's just incredible. I absolutely adore this thing. The blade length is very, very comfortably where I like it. It's tall enough and has a nice enough grind that I found no problems cutting through cardboard or rubber or anything like that. Like, this was genuinely just a joy for me to use. It felt, in terms of like the blade shape, kind of like, honestly, kind of like an old school Barlow with that long flat section followed by some belly and a fairly usable, if a little bit obtuse, tip. But it stabbed into things, it cut into feed bags with absolutely no issue. Another neat sort of old-fashioned thing that you don't see so much anymore is it'll stand up on its tail like a doctor's knife. You mostly see that on traditionals, some modern traditional stuff. But like blade open or closed, it'll actually just stand on its tail, which is pretty cool. I like it at the very least. The button's nice. The jimping going this far up means that, like, kind of no matter what grip you're on, your finger's not going to slip very much. And again, jimping all the way down the back, right? Like, this is a very, very solid feel in the hand. I personally really, really like it. So into some size comparisons. Here it is next to the Wii Banter and the Civivi Chevalier. As you can see, it is quite a bit longer than the Banter and pretty well the same length as the Chevalier. Putting it very, like, comfortably into what I would consider to be sort of a regular average sized knife. And here it is next to a Buck 110 and a Zippo. So again, you can see it is shorter than the Buck 110, comfortably reassuring it in that medium average sized knife territory. It does have a lot of handle real estate for an average sized knife. That's not to say that the blade feels small by any stretch of the imagination. It's just some combination of having the pivot far enough forward and the blade. I'm just going to put these off to the side real quick. The blade coming so far back into the handle means that it feels overall bigger than it actually is, especially compared to a lot of knives in its size class. I feel like I have a lot more handle real estate with this than I do even with my Civivi Chevalier, which has a very, very similar set of proportions. Part of it's the height, part of it's just the comfort factor. They're very, very similar knives size-wise, but this one here feels bigger in use. In terms of its thickness, next to the Buck 110, it is quite close to the same thickness as the Buck 110. It is a little bit slimmer, but not by tons. And I think that kind of helps reinforce this, like, hand-feeling, working feel that I get from it, because it does genuinely feel pretty nice and big and meaty and comfortable in the hands. And it's actually a little bit thicker than the Zippo you can see there, which is pretty cool. Yeah, exceptionally, exceptionally comfortable, easy to manipulate, fun to manipulate. I had no complaints about it the entire time that I've used it. I can't praise this thing enough. I mean, you can see I've got some shmoo on the pocket clip. It would be cool if they did these in other colors. Specifically, I love the color purple. I would be so many kinds of down for a purple colored handle. Or wood. Wood's tough because you need a stabilized wood product probably rather than like actual wood. But a stabilized wood product would be so cool. I'd absolutely snap one of those up in a heartbeat. Like, this is just genuinely super, super nice. I'm trying to think. Out of my entire knife collection, what would I pick if I had to pick one of my knives to carry every single day forever? Would this be the one? And the answer to that is no, but it's pretty close. So let me just grab the two things that it would actually be like in competition with in terms of like if I had to carry something every single day for the rest of forever, what competition would be. And so this is folding knives only. There's 3 knives that I think this thing would be competing with if I had to carry it every single day forever. Kizer Escort, yes, I got some acid on mine and kind of messed up the blade finish, but exceptionally comfortable knife, nice to resharpen, great action, and I love the purple. It's not micarta, it's that paper micarta stuff. Rich light handles, absolutely love this. So it would definitely be competing with this. Same size, very similar size, very similar handle profile, a little bit taller profile and a little bit pointier of a tip, but these fit very, very similar. The difference being this one here has thumb studs rather than a flipper tab and an axis lock instead of a button lock. The Spyderco PM2 would be the next option. It has a smaller usable blade length, much pokier tip, and a bigger handle and like handle working area. This is a phenomenal work knife. I absolutely love using this thing as a work knife, but like it's not far off from twice the price. It's like 1.8 times the price, so it should be better. And honestly, I don't know if I would pick it. Today I probably would. 3 days ago I might not have. These two are very, very close for that. And finally, the other one that would be in competition, and this is a fair amount smaller feeling, is actually my Flytanium Arcade. Absolutely love this knife. Very pokey feeling tip, very strong lock, but it has a lot of the same upsides as the Kizer does. Biggest difference being, again, thumb studs only, and it has the shark lock. Super cool knives, all 3 of them, but this right here is up in my top 5, probably hovering around that top. It's definitely top 3 for folding knives for me. This is absolutely exceptional, made an excellent everyday carry. And if you were just looking for one knife in that 150 and under, keep in mind all my numbers are Canadian range, this is, I would comfortably say this is the one you should get. So yeah, absolutely phenomenal. Kept its edge as well as you can expect 154 cm to keep its edge. How thick is the blade? Blade stock thickness is going to be, it felt fairly thin, but a big part of that could genuinely just be the grind. Having that high of a flat grind does quite a few nice things. And wow, talking like in the realm of 105 instead of 107. Yeah, 107 thousandths of an inch. That's pretty slim. How tall is the blade? I guess that would be the other thing. Yeah, and the blade is over an inch tall, so you have a lot, especially back here, you have a lot of grind space to get that down to an extremely thin final edge. It just feels so good. It looks so good. All the fit and finish was absolutely phenomenal. It does suck that it's one position only pocket clip, but I do kind of understand it. The texturing back here I find quite comfortable. It's not too aggressive. Like, just everything about this is so nice. I have run out of things to say. I'm just praising this thing off the charts because I genuinely feel it deserves it. Stay safe and have fun out there. Peace.